Here is Ian Pearson from the Uniting Church in Australia, and we're very happy to have him here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, and I'm pleased to speak today because, like many of you, I have spent time in the company of those seeking asylum in Australia.
Thanks.
And I'm thinking of two people in particular at this moment. One person whose tears I shared with him because he had been tortured in the eastern part of Saudi Arabia, and I'm delighted that he is on the way now to becoming a citizen of Australia. I think of another person whose tears were shed because of the psychiatric difficulties that he has, which have only emerged as he has been in detention in Australia because he came by boat. And that's the difference between these two people. One came by plane and another came by boat. Human beings treated differently, and what a way to make wonderful citizens of Australia, to give them a psychiatric illness with which to join us. Churches are not known for coming to a lot of decisions together, I'm afraid to say. But on this issue, there are 7 leaders of churches around Australia who have done so and have made a joint statement. And I'm going to read that statement to you, and I will list the people when I conclude. As Australian church leaders, we stand together to express our grave concern at the passing of legislation to allow the offshore processing and indefinite detention of asylum seekers. Core to the Christian value is the principle of welcoming the stranger, and Jesus' parable of the Good Samaritan guides us as we seek to care for those who are vulnerable and marginalised in society. As Christians, we are called to cross the road to help, not to turn away those in need. The 7th Forum of the National Council of Churches in Australia in 2010 called on all political parties to meet Australia's responsibilities by, quote, accommodating and processing in Australia asylum seekers who reach Australian territory, unquote. Australia is an open and hospitable country. Many of our churches grew here as a result of having fled places of violence or migrating to seek better futures for their families. We welcome the commitment of the government to increase the number of places in our humanitarian program to 20,000 and hope it will continue to increase the program as the Houston panel has recommended. However, we are deeply troubled by the potential for asylum seekers to suffer adverse mental health consequences and to experience other detrimental impacts as a result of this legislation. We are concerned that this damages our credibility and in particular our ability to negotiate a humane regional system of protection. Finding answers to this complicated humanitarian challenge is difficult. As long as our world is broken and countries are ravaged by war, then people will flee violence and persecution. But as a rich and secure nation, Australia has a particular responsibility to ensure that we work positively with other nations to develop a range of strategies that are grounded in compassion and that seek to honour the moral responsibility we have to victims of violence and persecution. It is only through such cooperation that we can provide asylum seekers with real alternatives to undertaking a desperate boat journey to find safety. And there are 7 people who have signed this. The Most Reverend Dr. Philip Aspinall, who's Primate of the Anglican Church in Australia. The Reverend Craig Brown, who is Federal Coordinator of the Churches of Christ in Australia. Commissioner James Condon, Australian Eastern Territory of the Salvation Army. Ms. Maxine Cooper, yearly meeting clerk of the Religious Society of Friends. Professor Andrew Dutney, President of the Uniting Church in Australia. Dr. Joe Goodall, moderator of the Congregational Federation of Australia and Aotearoa, New Zealand. And the Most Reverend Dennis Hart, President of the Australian Catholic Bishops' Conference. This is an important issue for all Australians, for people who are in churches and mosques and synagogues and other places of worship right around our country, and it's something with which we all need to be concerned. To be concerned about human beings who find themselves in circumstances where they at home are unsafe. And so it is very important for us to continue to lobby our politicians of all parties in order to bring an end to this so-called solution for asylum seekers who come by boat. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian.